Hello, friends. This is Bob Elson aboard the 20th Century Limited, one of the world's great trains, where we have a host of travelers today and some very, very interesting people. Our first guest today is going to be Mr. Wendell Burge, who is Assistant Attorney General, head of the Antitrust Division of the Department of Justice. How are you, Mr. Burge?
Oh, fine, Mr. Elson. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure, Mr. Burge, to have you on our program. I wonder, when a man reaches the stage or state that you have in your particular profession, I'm interested, just naturally, something about your early background. Where'd you go to school?
Well, I grew up in Nebraska, and I went to the University of Nebraska, then I went to Michigan Law School. Got my law degree at Michigan.
How good was the Michigan Law School in those days?
It was a fine school then. They also had a good football team.
You know, Mr. Burge, they say, and I don't profess to know anything about it, but they tell me that you judge a law school by its faculty. Is that right?
Oh, that's very important. Yes, sir. It certainly is. And we had a good faculty at Michigan. Still have.
Now, I'd like to ask you just a few questions about your present job in the Antitrust Division. Would you tell us just a few of the things that you're primarily interested in right now?
Well, I suppose right now our principal problem is to preserve the opportunity for free and independent business enterprise in this country. We want to see the veterans returning from the military service have a chance to go into independent business. We want small business to survive in its competition with monopolistic groups. That's our principal responsibility right now.
Mr. Burge, I think that our listeners, and I know I would be interested in knowing, something about the division of the Attorney General's office. For instance, you're the head, the Assistant Attorney General, having charge of the antitrust side of it. How many different divisions are there in the Attorney General's office?
Well, the way the Department of Justice is set up, there's the second-ranking official is the Solicitor General, who is responsible for all appeal litigation in the Supreme Court and the Circuit Courts of Appeal. Then there's an administrative officer who handles the appointments and relations with Congress, called the Assistant to the Attorney General. And there are 5 Assistant Attorneys General, each responsible for a division. The different divisions are the Antitrust Division, which I head, the Criminal Division, the Tax Division, the Lands Division, and the Claims Division, which handles civil litigation as distinguished from criminal litigation. And, of course, each one of those Assistant Attorneys General has quite a large staff.
Yes. Mr. Burge, were you appointed by the President?
Yes, I'm a presidential appointee. I was appointed in 1941.
I believe that you wrote a book, didn't you, on cartels, and there's no reason in the world why you shouldn't plug it.
Well, I wrote a book, yes. It was published in 1944 called Cartels Challenge to a Free World. It's still in print, I think.
Would you explain, because I imagine there are a lot of people would wonder a little bit about cartels. What is the meaning of cartel?
Well, a cartel is stated briefly as an international monopoly, or a combination of monopolies in different countries. The different monopoly groups get together and agree among themselves on the division of world markets and on the division of territory so that, in effect, there isn't any competition in international trade. That's really what a cartel is. And we contend that for American companies to participate in cartel activities is violative of the Sherman antitrust law.
What success did your book have?
Oh, well, you know how it is with all books that purport to discuss serious subjects. It went over reasonably well. It wasn't any bestseller, of course.
How long did it take you to write it, Mr. Burge?
Well, off and on for about 6 months.
I imagine that writing a book of that kind takes a great deal of work and a great deal of research. It isn't like batting off a novel.
Well, of course, that's right. Although you draw on your accumulated experience, and if you write about a field in which you've been working, it's easier, of course, than to approach an entirely new field.
Well, Mr. Burge, we're very grateful to you for this interesting interview. It's been a pleasure having you on our program today. And I hope you'll try a shave with our product. It's Crank Shave Cream containing Diexin, and it's a wonderful product. And once you use it, I'm sure you'll never use anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Elson.
Thank you a lot for being our guest. That was Mr. Wendell Burge, Assistant Attorney General, head of the Antitrust Division of the Department of Justice. And now our next guest today is going to be Dr. Morris Fishbein, who is a very well-known gentleman. He is editor of the Journal of the American Medical Association. How are you, Dr. Fishbein?
Excellent. Excellent, Mr. Elson.
Well, Doctor, I have heard your name mentioned for many, many years. You know, in the medical profession, of course, I'm used to hearing names of athletes, ball players, and hockey players, and things like that. But I guess in your profession, you're about as well known as any of the well-known athletes I've met.
I'm always interested in hearing you broadcast something of those games that I see, too, because I'm pretty much of an addict of the Bears and also the Cubs.
Well, that's fine. Dr. Fishbein, tell us, what are some of the advancements right now, maybe that have come out of the war, or maybe just because of time and the fact that there are natural advancements in medicine, but what are a few of the outstanding that you could mention?
One of the most important, of course, is the development of blood and blood substitutes for the saving of human lives in shock and in hemorrhage. Part of the trip that I'm making now is to go down to the American Red Cross and work out a 5-year program so that all the American people will have the advantage of blood transfusion without any cost, with the plasma being supplied through the state health departments, and the only cost is the cost of administration by the doctor.
Well, Dr. Fishbein, I would say that would be a very, very constructive step.
It's very important because unquestionably it saved thousands of lives in the war that just ended. In World War I, we lost about 11% from wounds, and in this war, less than 3%, and a lot of that was due to blood and blood products.
Dr. Fishbein, what about atomic research in relation to medicine?
We're just beginning to work on that, and the suggestion has already been made that the American Medical Association and the National Research Council begin getting together radioactive iodine and radioactive sodium and calcium and various other substances, because with the radioactive isotopes you can take radioactivity directly into various portions of the body where there may be tumors. And we've just announced last week the cure of a cancer of the thyroid gland by taking radioactive iodine. That's a great discovery.
That certainly is, Dr. Fishbein. It's certainly wonderful. You know, with all the wonderful things that you men of medicine have been able to do through the years, what about the changes? I don't know whether this is a good question or not, but what about, say, 50 years ago when we didn't have the advancement? What about the average length of life as compared to today?
Well, the average length of life in 1825 was 33 years, and the average length of life today is over 65 years. And another thing that I'm doing on this trip is to make the arrangements for celebrating the 100th anniversary of the American Medical Association, which was founded in 1847. And the American people have a great deal to be thankful for, since we have the highest life expectancy in this country of any country in the world.
Well, I think that they would certainly all join in on that, Doctor, and appreciate the wonderful work that the doctors of America have done. And thank you so much for being our guest. And going into New York tomorrow morning, I hope you'll try a shave with our product. It's Crank Shave Cream containing Dioxin. And I know, Doctor, you'll never want to use anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Elton.
Thanks a lot. That was Dr. Morris Fishbein. Friends, I'd like to tell you frankly that this is a doubly interesting job, interviewing prominent people and famous people and people with an interesting story, and also convincing friends of mine and people I've never seen that Crank Shave Cream is truly a remarkable product. Yes, letter after letter has come to me from men who have tried Crank Shave Cream, thanking me for the suggestion. These men tried a tuber jar, wrote me of their thanks, and what they said convinced me that because Crank Shave Cream now contains Dioxin, it's really something out of this world. Dioxin absorbs the tough, gluey film on your whiskers, softens your beard in a matter of seconds, speeds up your shave and saves you time, and goes a long way toward the most comfortable shave you've ever had. Yes, friends, I recommend Crank Shave Cream containing Dioxin with enthusiasm, because I know what it'll do. Try a tuber jar yourself, and you'll find out that's Crank Shave Cream containing Dioxin. We're happy to have as our guest today a gentleman from Tennessee, a congressman from Tennessee. His name is Mr. Estes Kefauver, and I was a little worried about the pronunciation, Congressman. Did I hit it pretty close?
Yes, Bob Elston. You came about as close as anyone ever does for our first trial.
Well, Congressman, that is a rather odd name. It's the first time I've run across it. Are there many in your background?
Yes, a lot of us in Tennessee and then also in Maryland. It's good to be here with you, Bob, on this program. I've heard it many times.
Well, thank you very much. Congressman, how long have you been in the House of Representatives?
This is my fourth term. I came in 1939, and fortunately I've been reelected for another term. The Republican sweep didn't get us down in Tennessee. I'm very thankful for that.
So you have been in the House of Representatives during the real history-making years?
Yes, I think I've experienced as many exciting moments as most anyone ever could being in the House of Representatives. I remember when the President came up to ask Congress to declare war after the attack on Pearl Harbor. I think that was one of the highlights of my experience in the House of Representatives. Also on the other occasions when President Roosevelt, Secretary Hull, and Mr. Truman have been up to address the House have all been great moments in my legislative career.
Yes. Congressman, would you tell us what committees are you primarily interested in the House?
I'm a member of the Judiciary Committee and also of the Select Committee on Small Business. And I suppose it's by virtue of my work on the Select Committee of Small Business that I'm out here in Chicago. I just made an address with Wendell Burge to the new Council of American Business, a meeting of that group at the Congress Hotel last night.
Congressman, you might be interested, and I'm sure you've heard it too, but during the past year on this program on the Century, we have talked to many of the country's most prominent businessmen. One of the most common complaints we hear has been the plight or the lot of the small businessman.
Yes, everybody talks about it, and everybody wants to do something for small business. Our committee, we think, has made a very good record. We were responsible for the creation of the Smaller War Plants Corporation, which did a lot for small business during the war in helping them get war contracts. We've also taken up different matters with different departments to see that small business got a better break. As to what's going to happen in the future, I don't know. Of course, our free enterprise system, I think, to a large extent does depend upon fostering and helping develop small businesses, giving them an opportunity to get organized and to grow and to make a profit. That's a big part of our free enterprise system.
Congressman, we've heard a lot, and of course we read in the paper and heard on the radio of the attitude of the Republican majority now to go along with President Truman.
Well, I hope that there's going to be a wholehearted cooperation between the Republican Congress and the Democratic President. There certainly should be. I know, of course, most of the Republican leaders, and I think they're going to take a wholesome attitude about matters. In connection with our Small Business Committee, we've had a very pleasant working arrangement with the Republicans on the committee, and I hope that they're going to carry on the committee in the next Congress. Of course, we'll have Republican chairmen. In the case of our committee, it would be Mr. Leonard Hall of New York City, who's a very splendid man and would do a good job if the committee's carried on.
Well, Congressman, thank you very, very much for being our guest on the program today. It's been a pleasure having you, and I hope you'll try a shave with our product. It's Crank Shave Cream with Diexin. And once you use it, even if you're in Washington or Tennessee, you'll never use anything else.
Thank you, Bob Elson. I needed some shaving cream very badly.
Thank you very, very much for being our guest. Friends, I'd like to remind you again to take my personal recommendation and buy Crank Shave Cream containing Diexin. And don't accept a substitute. Crank's is the only shave cream containing that marvelous new discovery, Diexin, the wonder worker that softens your whiskers in seconds. And this means the quickest, smoothest, most comfortable shave you've ever had. You can get Crank Shave Cream in the giant-sized tube. You can also get it in the pound or half-pound jar at your favorite drugstore today, and I'll appreciate your trying it much indeed. The Century's all set to pull out, and this is Bob Elson saying goodbye from the world-famous Streamliner, the 20th Century Limited.